it's Max, and today I am here with my November wrap up. I can't believe it's already December. I mean, 2020 has been very slow, but also kind of flying by, and just so much has happened this year for everyone. But I did not have a great reading month. Honestly, I think it's one of the worst that I've had in quite some time. Like, I barely read the bare minimum. I played TBR cards, but I didn't end up reading 3 of them. One of them was The Storm Before the Storm, which was to read a serious contemporary or a serious fiction, and I started just in the timeline of Rome too late, where I don't really understand anything that's going on or what they're talking about, and I decided that I better put that on the back burner till I catch up, which will take a long time, which is why I traded out the audiobook on Audible. The other 2 were The Bookworm and Da Vinci's Tiger, which was both to read the lowest rated book on Goodreads. And you know what? I am okay with that because I am in quite a slump. I'm starting to get out of it, but I was in a really bad slump this month. And so reading the worst reviewed books on Goodreads, not a great idea. So without further ado, let's just get into it. The first book that I read was For 3 of Hearts, Read Your Most Recent Acquisition, and I went with an arc of The Camelot Betrayal by Kirsten White. This is the sequel to the Guinevere Deception, which I enjoyed, but I didn't love, and I read it back in, I want to say like February. I hated this one even more. I really didn't like it. This is about, it takes place during Arthur's time, like originally, and Guinevere turns out to have died, and Merlin sends in this creation of his to pretend to be Guinevere, and she doesn't remember really anything before this, and it was just so meh. I didn't like Guinevere. She was so annoying and just like so prideful to the point of like screwing over her friends, and I just really didn't like it, and I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was For Ace of Clubs, Read a New Release, and I went with Bookish and the Beast by Ashley Poston. This is the 3rd book in Ashley Poston's like modern, Once Upon a Con series. First one being Geekerella, next one being Princess and the Fangirl, and then Bookish and the Beast, and I really enjoyed this. This follows our main character who is still grieving after the death of her mother, and she follows this dog into this house that she thinks is abandoned and ends up accidentally damaging a priceless novel, and so she has to work to repay the debt by cataloging all of the books in this library. Our other point of view is the villain of this series that's like very famous, and he's kind of trying to get his life back together, and he kind of hates her at first, but then they grow to be friends and more. It was very fun, very fast-paced. I read this during a day where I read like 3 books, and I just really enjoyed it, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was another arc, and it was For 5 of Diamonds, Read an Arc, and it was Dryad Volume 1 by the same person who writes Rat Queens. And this was okay. This is kind of, it reminds me of like Saga meets Illuminae, where there's this family and they're kind of on the run and they're like hidden out on this planet, but when someone who's part of the parents' old like crew finds them, they are taken back to the city with their children, and stuff happens. It was okay. I didn't really love the plot. It's a plot that I feel like is now a little overdone, and so it was just kind of, I mean, it was fast. It was like 130 pages or 140 pages, and so I read it very fast. I just wasn't that interested, so I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. Next book I read was the 3rd and last book that I finished in that one day, and it is Ace of Diamonds, Read a Book by an Auto-by-Author, and I went with Over the Woodward Wall by A. Deborah Baker, aka Shannon McGuire. This is the children's novel that inspires the villains in Middle Game, which is amazing. I'm not gonna go into what that book is about because it's like a whole thing, but this is a portal fantasy where these 2 neighbors miss the bus, and they have to go like a different route to school, but when they climb over a wall, they're transported to another world and they're trying to get back. I enjoyed this. It was very simple. I didn't really feel like there was much of a moral to it, and it was okay. I think I'm gonna give it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was fun, it was fast-paced, it's very short, but I didn't love it. The next book was Jack of Hearts, read a book that BookTube recommends, and I went with the reread of Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson in preparation for Rhythm of War, which I am in the middle of right now. This was so good. I love the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. This series it takes place in a war-torn world, and we follow 4 main characters. One is the uncle of the king, one is a healer turned soldier turned slave, one is a noblewoman sent to the court of the princess to steal an artifact, and the last is an assassin in white who weeps as he kills. And this is just such an amazing series. I am loving Rhythm of War right now, just like loving it. I'm almost halfway through, and it was just so good, and it really helped start the climbing out of this slump that I found myself in. The next book that I read did not go towards any TBR cards, but that was Squire by Tamora Pierce. It was my Tamora Pierce book of the month though. And this is the 3rd book in the Protector of the Small series, which follows Kel, who is the first lady knight since Alana. I enjoyed this more than the second one, but I did not enjoy it as much as the first one. I think I'm gonna give it a 4.25 out of 5 stars. It is very action-packed, and I really enjoyed that. And a big problem that I have with this series is how the bullies are treated, and it's basically you are told like you don't rat on anyone. It doesn't matter if they break your arm, it doesn't matter if they try to actually kill you, you keep your mouth shut. I hate that mentality because this is a middle grade series, so it's telling people who are bullied to keep their mouths shut, and I don't like that. And in this it is rectified, but like in a way that doesn't feel it doesn't feel like they're getting justice. It feels like, okay, well, you know, I'm not gonna say anything, but so I didn't love that, but I really enjoyed the rest of it. The next book went towards the prompt to read a classic fantasy, and I went with The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. I really enjoyed this one. His action scene for Helm's Deep was slightly longer than any other action scene I've read by him, meaning it was 10 pages, but I did end up really enjoying this. It's interesting to compare this to the movie because the movie does just draw stuff out so much more. Like Merry and Pippin, when they're like trying to convince the Ents to like fight for them, it happens in 1 chapter in here, and it takes like half of the movie to do it. And I just did really enjoy this though. J.R.R. Tolkien, I'm just learning, is so easy to read. Like, I don't know why I was so nervous. I feel like it's because so many people are nervous about reading it that I thought it was gonna be dry and long and hard to get through. It's so fast-paced. His writing is so accessible. I fly through them. And I gave it a 4.25 out of 5 stars as well. The next book was for Jack of Hearts to read a book, read a book that BookTube recommends. And I went with Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. And I loved it. Oh my god, this was so good. It's definitely one of the best books I've read this year. I cannot wait to read Empire of Gold. This series is about a girl named Nari who lives in ancient Egypt, and she kind of thinks she's a con woman. She prescribes people things that she doesn't actually think are gonna work, but when she accidentally summons a deva, he takes her to Devabad, this mythical city, and presents her to the king and his son Ali, who is our other point of view, and she realizes that she is the last living descendant of this huge ancestral line of healers, and it's just so good. Oh my god, if you haven't read this trilogy yet, please do. I am so excited to pick up the 3rd one. Oh my god, I cannot wait. This was so amazing, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. All right, and then the last book that I read this month was for Two of Hearts, read a new release, and I went with A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. And this was okay. This takes place on Earth, but some people have magic, and when they reach a certain age, they are kind of transported to this school and kind of left to their own devices for 4 years, and they are left to fight and kill demons and create pacts. There are no adults, and then at the end, their final exam to get out of the school is to kill like a bunch of demons. And our main character is very standoffish. She doesn't make a lot of friends, and this school is all about making alliances to be able to fight to get out. And she just doesn't have any friends. But when the like golden boy of the school realizes that she couldn't care less, that he's like a hero, he kind of like, he likes that, and so he befriends her, and now all of a sudden everyone wants her on their side. I really liked our main character. She reminds me a lot of me, where I have a hard time making friends, but then I am super loyal. She is loyal to the end. She will face death in the face to make sure her friends are safe, and that I really enjoyed. But I think that the world building could use a lot of work. I'm like, okay, why aren't there any adults? Like, you're just leaving all these kids to die, because the majority of them do, and they don't even see really a problem with it. And I'm like, okay, so why aren't there any adults? And I get like children emit like a scent basically because they can't control their magic, and it attracts demons. So I get putting them in like what's supposed to be a safe location, but it's not. And instead of like having people around that can protect them like adults, they send them away alone to a school and they are not allowed to leave for 4 years. And it's just, I don't know why. And I wish that that was explained more, because it just makes me like, I don't get it. I'm like, that's absurd. Like, no parent would actually do that. And I just had a really hard time reconciling with that. So I did give it a 4 out of 5 stars. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Go check out my December TBR as it is up, and I have a lot of plans. And I will see you soon with another video. Bye.